Well, for the Rural Radio Network, I'm Joe Gangwish. Beef Feedlot Roundtables took place here recently across Nebraska. At the Lexington location, we caught up with Galen Erickson from the University of Nebraska. So, Galen, you had a couple of topics to talk about here at the Roundtables. First of all, start with the silage aspect. What did you have to tell guys?
Well, we've been working on a research area, and we think it's got some real opportunity for our beef industry in Nebraska to utilize corn residue more. And chopping silage is one of those many facets that we're interested in. So for our beef feedlot producers, we think that there's some really real good opportunities. If you look at silage as an energy source, everybody's used to putting up silage and feeding as a roughage source, but the focus we've had here more recently is, should I feed more than the traditional amount of silage that I've been feeding? And how should we optimize silage growing programs, and how should we price silage? And so it's hopefully been information that's useful. We have a lot of information in our beef report, and we'll have a whole day conference coming up in June focused on just silage. So this is a bit of an appetizer for that meeting in June.
Very good. Tell us about some of the research. I mean, how does it look? It must look pretty positive.
When we look at going from 15% inclusion in the diet on a dry basis, which is kind of normal as a roughage source, to roughly doubling that, we think there's an extra $5 to $15 per head profit in that kind of a shift if they're an operation that can put up that much silage and they own their cattle. So sort of a traditional private family farmer feeder operation. You know, we've also looked at, should we harvest silage a little drier or not, and will that make them more money? And that's not as clear cut. So our recommendation today is to harvest your silage at 63% moisture or 37% dry matter. That's awfully hard to do and judge, though, when the corn's standing in the field.
That's right. Well, you're also here to talk a little bit about some research update. Tell us about some of the things there.
Well, we're always very proud of our Nebraska beef report, and so the 2016 report is out now, and so we're going to highlight some take-home messages from some of those different, very current, very up-to-date research things that we're focused on. I'm going to be discussing some different things, such as how does performance of cattle change across the feeding period. You know, we've seen increased weights, at least earlier last year. There's reasons for that, but if you're going to feed cattle longer and make them even bigger, everybody sort of knows, well, as cattle get bigger, their gains drop off and they become less efficient. And that's true on a live basis, but if our yards are selling on a carcass weight basis or a dressed weight basis, there's a lot of incentive to actually make them bigger from an economic standpoint, and that's why producers have done it. And so a lot of people get worried, well, we have big cattle and lots of beef on the market, and I guess I take exception to that. That's true, but who's going to be the first to sell them lighter when an individual has an incentive to make them bigger because it makes them more money? And so we've got a real battle there of do we want to make cattle lighter, or do we want individuals to make as much profit as they can?
So we're seeing heavier cattle then up north here in Nebraska, since we sell more on a dressed basis versus what we see down south?
Well, unfortunately, the southern plains are catching on, and so they've been selling cattle more and more on a dressed basis compared to historically, and so that advantage we've always had, I think, unfortunately going away some because they're catching on to what we've been doing right for years.
Galen Erickson with the University of Nebraska at the Beef Feedlot Roundtables taking place today in Lexington. For the Rural Radio Network, I'm Joe Gangwish.